Carrie and Darin, Sarah and Nate, and Michelle and I arrived in downtown Durango early Sunday morning.
I've been working on the railroad all the live long
Darin had made special arrangements for us to ride the steam train to Silverton and back, aboard the first-class passenger car, Yankee Girl.
I'm away. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Rise up so early in the morning. Can't you hear the captain shouting? Dinah, blow your horn. Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow your horn? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow your horn?
The diesel-powered train departed Durango Station just after 8:30 a.m. Shortly after the first train departed, the two-header steam locomotives shifted tracks and coupled with the rest of the train waiting at the station. Just after 9 a.m., with the sound of the steam whistle, the D&SNG steam-powered train crossed West College Drive and began its journey toward Silverton.
Now down by the station, early in the morning, there's a whole lot of people in line. And they all got a ticket on the train to yesterday, and it's gonna leave on time. Well, it's a 45-mile up the Animas Canyon, so they run her on the narrow gauge. She takes a whole lot of water and she needs a lot of coal, and they call her the Silverton.
Silverton Train, there's a Silverton on the phone, Durango. Here comes the Silverton, the shovel and coal. Here comes the Silverton on the phone, and you can see the smoke and hear the whistle blow. Here comes the Silverton on the phone,
The Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad is a heritage railroad that operates on 45.2 miles of track between Durango and Silverton, Colorado. Their trains operate on a narrow gauge, meaning the rails are 3 feet apart rather than the standard 4 feet 8.5-inch gauge employed by standard gauge railroads. The route was originally opened in 1882 by the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad to transport silver and gold ore mined from the San Juan Mountains. The line from Durango to Silverton has run continuously since 1881, although since the 1960s it's been strictly a tourist and heritage line, hauling passengers, first under the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad name, and then since 1981 under the Durango and Silverton narrow gauge. The D&SNG is one of the few lines in the U.S. which has seen continuous use of steam locomotives. The D&SNG Railroad travels 45.2 miles each way along the Animas River from Durango to Silverton and back during the summer season, May through October. During the winter season, late November through early May, the train travels only 26 miles each way, turning around at the Y at Cascade Station.
She was born one morning on a San Juan summer back in 1881. She was a beautiful daughter of the D&RG, and she weighed about 1,000 tons. Well, it's a 45-mile through the Animas Canyon, so they set her on the narrow gauge. She drank a whole lot of water and she ate a lot of coal, and they called her the Silverton.
Silverton Train, here comes the Silverton up from Durango. Here comes the Silverton to shovel and coal. Here comes the Silverton up from the canyon. See the smoke and hear the whistle blow.
The last point of highway access between Durango and Silverton is the Rockwood Station. Between Rockwood and Silverton, the area is a designated wilderness area and, aside from the train, there's no motorized access. The route to Silverton aboard the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad is an unforgettable journey along the spectacular Animas River. The Animas River is one of the last free-flowing rivers in the entire western United States. The train crosses the river 5 times on its journey to Silverton, offering spectacular views from either side of the train. The route passes fertile farmlands, old stagecoach roads, the breathtaking High Line, the remote Tacoma power plant, old mining camps, and runs in the shadow of peaks reaching over 14,000 feet. A short distance after departing Rockwood Station, our train entered the San Juan National Forest. It was from here that the breathtaking beauty this railroad route is renowned for truly begins.
You got the good shot.
At Darin's suggestion, I spent a good portion of the journey north towards Silverton, standing on the platform between our car and the Vista car connected behind the Yankee Girl, trying my best to get video and still pictures of the doubleheader engines gradually pulling us from Durango's elevation of 6,512 feet up to Silverton's elevation of 9,318 feet along the 45 miles of track. The train slowly made its way along the narrow edge of the Animas Canyon, also known as the Animas Gorge or simply the High Line, 400 feet above the churning Animas River.
It'll take a few days for that to clear. I bet.
The river itself, far below us, appeared a sickly-looking brownish-yellow color rather than its normal green-blue appearance. Darin explained this was due to the heavy rain that had deluged Silverton on Saturday, something he and Carrie had personally experienced, churning up the river and causing mud and silt from further north to make its way toward Durango.
Well, now listen to the whistle in the rockwood cut on the High Line to Silverton town. And you're gonna get a shiver when you check out the river, which is 400 feet straight down. Take on some water at the Needleton tank and then struggle up a 2-5 grade. And by the time you get your hide past the snow shed slide, you had to ride on the Silverton.
Silverton Train, here comes the Silverton up from Durango. Here comes the Silverton shovel and coal. Here comes the Silverton up from the canyon. See the smoke and hear the whistle blow.
The steam train stops twice en route to Silverton, once at Tank Creek, where steam locomotives have paused to top off their water tanks since the 1890s, and again at the water tank at the appropriately named Water Tank Canyon, about 12.5 miles south of Silverton. Other highlights of the trip north included passing the exclusive Soaring at Tall Timber Resort, an exclusive vacation resort so remote the only way to get there is aboard the D&SNG train, and Cascade Canyon, which offers access to the hiking trail to Purgatory Falls, where the third D&SNG train during the summer and the only train running each day during the winter would stop. The train arrived in Silverton just after 12:30, after passing an abandoned copper mine about a mile outside of town and directly below the high roadway of US 550. Our train crew member aboard Yankee Girl pointed out a red splotch on the rocky hill above the mine, stating it was what remained of a Jeep that had fallen off 550 sometime in the relatively recent past. I was glad there wasn't a tank green splotch next to it. Once in Silverton, we had roughly 2 hours to stroll around town. While Michelle and I initially stuck around the train station to watch our train back out in preparation for turning around, Terry, Darin, Sarah, and Nate headed over to Green Street to find a place with enough available seats for all of us to have lunch. They managed to find a couple of open tables at Golden Block Brewery, a local microbrewery and pizza restaurant. Following lunch, Michelle and I walked around Blair Street, Silverton's original red light district. While the bordellos have all closed down, the historic buildings still exist, repurposed for the modern tourist trade. Natalia's 1912, currently an Italian restaurant, began life as a boarding house and is the oldest still-standing bordello in Silverton. Built in 1883 during the height of the mining rush, the building was sold in 1887 to Nell Castell, one of the original madams on the red light district of Blair Street. Besides being a bordello, the building has served as a dance hall at the turn of the century, the Welcome Saloon in 1909, and as a makeshift hospital during the flu epidemic of 1918. The old arcade trading company on the opposite side of both Blair and East 12th Streets from Natalia's, initially called the Old Arcade Reading Post, was the last bordello to be constructed on Blair Street in 1929. Large pool tables and gambling booths took residence in the front, while in the back, customers could find cribs, or small rooms where ladies of the night conducted business. When its current owner purchased the building in 1991, a secret room was discovered beneath its floorboards with enough space to house a ladder and 3 people. All that remained were a few bottles strewn around the space from the Prohibition era, implying the old arcade was also likely a stash point for bootleggers. The building has also served as a poll hall and a saloon. It is still painted the same orange as it was when it was first opened in 1929. The Shady Lady, directly across from Natalia's and built in 1888, was the last operating brothel in Silverton when Madame Jew Fanny closed shop in 1947. The building currently serves as the Shady Lady Restaurant and Saloon, offering such fare as burgers, hot dogs, and sandwiches rather than ladies of the night. The Bent Elbow Hotel was initially built in 1907 and opened as the Fatter's Treymount Saloon. Fred Bostock bought the saloon in 1956 and made updates to the location, including filling it with priceless antiquities. It was later destroyed by a terrible fire, but soon rebuilt again. The hotel has 6 uniquely designed rooms on the second floor, all advertised to include mountain views, easy enough since Silverton is surrounded by mountains, and each room offers a taste of each Silverton era. Silverton's Old Town Square in the heart of notorious Blair Street includes the original 1875 San Juan County Courthouse, which was moved from Howardsville, Colorado, roughly halfway between Silverton and Eureka, as well as 3 buildings currently operated as artisan shops that were once located in the mining ghost town of Eureka. Swanee's Old Mine Sluice in the center of the square is where kids and adults can gold pan for gems, and a small Boot Hill cemetery contains several humorous grave markers based on infamous real Old West graves. It is in front of Old Town Square that the local stagecoach, just horsing around tours, stops to pick up passengers for a short yet bumpy 20-minute ride around Silverton's historic district. The two horses pulling the coach are also happy to pose for pictures for a small voluntary donation. It was while admiring some of the modified Jeeps parked along Blair Street that I came across a white JKU with the name The Messenger along the hood. I approached the man standing near this Jeep and asked, "And what is the message?" The older gentleman wore a cowboy hat, sported a handlebar mustache, and when he smiled had the whitest, most perfect teeth I had ever seen. I did not realize it until much later in the day, but I had struck up a conversation with Michael Maxfield, a local celebrity of sorts who created and administers the San Juan Mountains Trail Group on Facebook. Mike is among the Forest Service workers who help maintain the many roads and trails the 4x4 community enjoys around the San Juan Mountains. He was the man behind the wheel of the grader we passed on the road to Animas Forks the prior Tuesday, and knows the region better than almost anyone else alive. The man is a local living legend. Every Jeep that passed during our conversation paused to offer a greeting to Mike. It was not until we were all back at the house that evening that Sarah realized exactly who it was who I'd been talking to. If I had realized at the time, I would have been sure to get a photo with this legend. Michelle and I headed back to the train about 10 minutes before it was scheduled to depart for the return trip to Durango. Before boarding the train, we stopped by a table set up near the tracks belonging to a pair of budding entrepreneurs who each looked about 12 years old. This boy and girl, likely brother and sister, were there selling samples of local rocks and ores to fund their college education. I purchased one last souvenir before boarding the train, a small piece of iron pyrite, commonly known as fool's gold, to add to my collection of rocks we had picked up from the various trails we had wheeled during our time in Colorado. I only hope these kids were being honest and that the money they made from selling their rocks, stones, and minerals is actually intended for their college funds, and not that they were being forced by their parents to sell rocks on the streets of Silverton. The train departed Silverton just after 2:30 p.m. Unfortunately, my SLR camera battery died before the train was even out of Silverton itself, and my smartphone had run out of memory before we even arrived in the town. As a result, I could not record any of our return trip back to Durango. I can only share a few photos Nate and Sarah took along the way. But the memories of our day aboard the Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad will last a lifetime.
Here comes the Silverton up from Durango. Here comes the Silverton to shovel and coal. Here comes the Silverton up from the canyon. See the smoke and hear the whistle blow.
The next day, Monday the 25th, would be our last full day in Colorado. A day to clean up the Durango house, get last loads of laundry washed, pack our bags and our vehicles, and prepare to begin what for Michelle and I would be our 3,000-mile journey back home.